The anime begins with Kazuma Hoshino as a child playing with a little girl in the river and promising to be friends forever. Then we see that it is a dream. He's on a train with his younger brother Ayumu. They go to Yamabiko, a town near the countryside, where Kazuma went with his father as a child, and they will stay at the Yorozuyo Inn, where they last stayed. It is an inn with a river in front and many green landscapes in the courtyard. But they take the wrong bus and have to wait an hour for the next one. While they wait, a monkey steals Ayumu's hat and Kazuma chases after it to get it off. He enters a forest where he ends up beaten, wet, and lost, but luckily he meets a beautiful girl. She is Yu Nakatsugawa, who is gathering wild vegetables and helps him get to the bus station. But first, they must cross a small river. Wu crosses first and shows him how to jump between the rocks, and our protagonist sees her so he gets nervous. He tries to cross the river and suddenly, he remembers when he was a child and played in that same river. So he trips and falls on the girl, kissing her. At that moment, Ibuki Hinata arrives. She's a friend of Yui, who sees them together on the ground and calls Kazuma a pervert. Then she kicks him in the face and threatening to take him to the police. But Yui explains that it was an accident and the two take him to the bus station, where he meets his little brother and gives him the hat. At the inn, they are greeted by the owner, Yorozu Senka. She will be their guardian, replacing their father. She shows them their rooms and Kazuma decides to take a bath before having tea with Yorozu and Ayumu. But when he enters the bathroom, he meets a girl who is cleaning it. She sees him totally naked, so he gets scared and runs away. But he bumps into Yorozu. She sees his little friend and tells him that it is pink. After that, Kazuma cries in his room out of embarrassment. But Ayumu walks in and he totally changes. He says that Yorozu is calling them to go to dinner. Downstairs, Yorozu makes a joke about dinner being served by women, making fun of what happened in the bathrooms. At night, our protagonist remembers everything that happened during the day and wonders what is the name of the girl he kissed, until he is interrupted by his brother who cannot sleep and asks to sleep next to him. The next morning, we see the brothers having breakfast and Yorozu introduces them to their guide that will take them to school. She is tutor of Somuji, the girl who saw Kazuma in the bathroom. She is a senior at Yamabiko South High, a year older than Kazuma. On the way to school, he explains to her that they came to that town for Azuma's health. Plus, his father is a novelist, and that they want to buy a house in that place. Arriving at a bridge, Tutor Tsumugi tells Ayumu that his junior high is crossing the bridge, so they say goodbye to him, and they both walk to their school. In his classroom, he is introduced as the new student, and there he sees Ibuki and Yui. They instantly recognize each other. Now we see Yui's dream being a little girl eating cake together with her brother, and then she remembers the kiss she had with Kazuma. She woke up and kept thinking about it. We return to the moment when our protagonist enters the new classroom, and despite Ibuki's complaints, he introduces himself in front of everyone. The teacher asks him to sit down, but her son, Daigo, says to her to ask Kazuma embarrassing questions, but his mother/teacher, as punishment, takes his place and gives it to Kazuma between Ibuki and Yui. At the end of that class, all the classmates start asking him a lot of questions, and they find out about Kazuma's accident with Yui because of Ibuki, but without mentioning the kiss. In the next class, we can see how Ibuki jealously guards Yui as she joins her desk with Kazuma and gives him her books so that he can study and not talk to Yui. After school ends, Kazuma and Daigo become friends and go together to the cafeteria where Ibuki and Yui are waiting for them to eat. Kazuma is surprised to see that Yui eats a lot. Yui says that they like to go to a viewing platform that is on the mountain. After lunch, the new friends invite Kazuma to visit the town, so he calls his brother to come with them. And before leaving the school, they meet Tsugumi, who will also go with them. Already on the bridge, we see that Ayumu is arriving along with Kasane, Tsugumi's younger sister, who is in the same class as Ayumu. Yui takes them first to a convenience store and then to buy snacks at another store, but Yui only buys cheese sticks. Kazuma tells her that it makes sense that it tastes like cheese, and Yui remembers the kiss and gets nervous thinking that she tastes like cheese, but he clarifies that he was referring to the muffin she gave him for lunch. They show all the shops and places in the town to the two brothers. But he wants to show Kazuma the lookout at the Twin Peaks mountain. Tsugumi tells him about a legend about this mountain, and that in the fall there is a festival in honor of that legend, where they end up launching boats into the river under the bridge, and if it flows, your wish comes true. When Tsugumi was telling the legend about the Kotama shrine, she is interrupted by Yui, who asks to go to that shrine. When they arrive, the brothers are surprised to see so many stairs. Yui takes advantage of this to challenge our protagonist to a race, who accepts, while the others go up slowly. Kazuma reaches the top first, and there he sees a girl sweeping the floor. She is Madoka Komoto, a first-year student who goes to the same school as our protagonist. Yui introduces them, and Madoka is surprised to hear his name, and she runs off. By late afternoon, they finish the guide through the whole town and want to go to Backpipe, a coffee shop near the school, where they sit down to eat, and Yui remembers her brother when Kazuma cleans her mouth. She inadvertently calls him brother and thinks it's because all day she heard Ayui say the word brother. Now we see Madako's dream. She's a little girl playing with a boy. She was putting together a flower crown while he gives her a flower ring. That morning, Yorozu goes to wake the boys up for school, but overhears and misinterprets their conversation, believing that they are having and and comes in yelling at them when they were only talking about Kazuma's messy hair. Already on the way to school, they bump into Daigo, leave Ayumu on the bridge, and see the girls, but Kazuma notices that someone is watching them. At lunchtime, Kazuma along with Daigo go to buy bread, and while Daigo teases him about Kazuma's rumors, he notices that he is being watched by a girl from afar, but he doesn't care. At the end of classes, Kazuma sees who is watching him from afar and begins to chase her around the school until he collides with a girl from the sanctuary, who becomes nervous and red because he's grabbing her and asks him to let her go, knocking him to the ground and sending him to the nurse's office. Sunday arrives, Kazuma wakes up at noon, and Yorozu scolds him and tells him to go out, like his brother who went out to draw landscapes. He complies, goes for a walk, and remembers the incident with Madako, so he decides to go to the sanctuary to apologize. Upon reaching the top of the sanctuary, he sees Madako and they both apologize, and after talking for a while, she asks him about the perverted rumors about him and Yui. He explains that it was all an accident since he slipped on the rocks and fell on top of Yu kissing her. Madoka starts crying when she hears about the kiss as she remembers a boy giving her a flower ring in that river. Suddenly, an acorn shoots out of a tree towards him. It is from the girl who watched him all day. She introduces herself as Tudu Koyori, a girl who heard all the rumors and is angry with Kazuma. Madako explains that he didn't do anything, and she leaves but angry because she didn't let her hit him anymore. The next day at the end of classes, Yui invites his friends to bagpipe, but only Kazuma accepts, since Ibuki has archery classes at her club and Daigo has English classes. But before leaving, Kazuma is warned by Ibuki so that he doesn't do anything weird with Yui. On the way, they meet Ayumu, and he tells his older brother that he joined the art club. He congratulates him, but notices that his little brother has a fever, so he carries him to the inn. Yui sees this and remembers when her brother was carrying her in the past. Also, she imagines what it would be like if Kazuma carried her on his back and turns red at the thought of him holding her by her legs. Arriving at the inn, Yui waits for Kazuma in his room when he walks in and says that Ayumu took his medicine and fell asleep. She tells him that he is a good brother and that she is jealous of Ayumu. They both get nervous, but are interrupted by Yorozu, who leaves them food and hides behind the door to listen to them. But Kazuma discovers her, and when he turns to see Yui, she has already eaten all the food. Another day at school, we see a girl going through a list on her cell phone. She is Sakai Hina, a third-year student in Harris to a famous distillery. At that moment, Kazuma and Daigo appear playing. Daigo goes to the bathroom and Kazuma accidentally pushes her. Throwing away her cell phone, he apologizes and hands it over to her, and after he compliments her cell phone ornament, she leaves. We then see Hina, thinking it's the first compliment she's been given and feeling embarrassed about it, even though it was a compliment to her cell phone ornament. At lunch, they talk about a sporting event that takes place in the town and the Hikonen race, which consists of an obstacle course that is televised locally, and all the stores are sponsors to have a little more publicity, since if you win, you have an interview. Yui, it will be sponsored by the Backpipe Cafe. Kazuma is not interested in that, but when he arrives at the inn, Yorozu is waiting for him to train him and be the representative of the inn. She rigorously trains him cleaning windows first, and then wanted him to touch hot sand, but he refuses and leaves her and goes to train by himself by running around town. In a park, he sees a bag with things abandoned in a tree, and when he gets closer, Koyori yells at him from above. She was saving a kitten. She gets angry with Kazuma and accuses him of wanting to steal her things, but suddenly she loses her balance. Our protagonist approaches her to catch her, and she falls on his face. On the way, she tells him that she is Tsubumi's sister and that the bag belongs to Grandpa Jen. She helps him by buying his things from time to time because he is an old man. Arriving at Grandpa Jen's house, he says that he is surprised to see that Koyori has a boyfriend. She denies it, embarrassed. The old man says that he has a daughter who married and his wife died 3 years ago. So now he is alone, but he has a grandson, Kita, who will have surgery soon, and he asks Koyori to visit that nephew in the hospital to cheer him up. Then we go to Hina's room, who has just taken a shower and is still thinking about Kazuma's flattery, and that she should apologize for how she treated him. The next day, Kazuma wakes up late again, and Yorozu tells him that his brother left early for Daigo's house. So he runs out of a train for a while when he runs into Ibuki, who is also training, but for her archery club. He asks her about Yui, and she tells him that Yu trains differently. We see that Yui is in the restaurant eating a giant bowl of ramen while being timed. At the hospital, Koyori and Grandpa Jen go to visit Kita, and the little boy promises to feel better if she wins the Hikonen race, and she agrees to that. At Hina's house, while her mother does accounts, her father looks for her help him, but she is training for the race. As she runs, she sees a teddy bear and hugs it, but when she sees Kazuma, she drops it. He picks it up, hands it to her, apologizes for the push last time, and leaves. Hina feels bad for not apologizing again. As he runs, Kazuma reaches the shrine stairs and climbs them as training. There he meets Madako. They talk about the festival, and she says that if he wins, he would represent Mogami, the male representation of the god of legend in the fall festival. At Daigo's house, he explains to Ayumu the Hikonen race, and that the family's support for the participants is very important, and tells him that he should support his brother by dressing as a female cheerleader. The athletic festival, Daigo is the announcer, and the contestants are divided into two teams. The orange team is led by Tsugumi, and the red team is led by Hina. First is the bread eating competition. The winner is Yue, who jumps very high to eat the bread, while Madoka distracts those who hold the posts with the bread with the jumps of her and they make it fall, but she still ends up in last place. Next up is the girls' 100-meter race. Hana participates in it and wins quickly. Later, the obstacle race, where Tsugumi participates, but she proves not to be good at sports, placing last. The next event is the scavenger hunt, where participants must follow clues to win. Kazuma participates, and he gets the track that says big, so he remembers Madoka jumping and chooses her to accompany him, but she throws him away because of her male phobia. After that, the archery team gives a demonstration, and it's Ibuki who does it, but at the moment of shooting the arrow, she gets distracted thinking about Kazuma and misses the shot. So she imagines that his face is the target, and this time she doesn't miss. Lunchtime arrives, and all the families begin to eat. Kazuma, Ayumu, and Yorozu eat together with Yue's family. After one more game where adults participate comes the main event, the Heikonen race. Yui, Hina, Koyori, and Kazuma will participate in it. Ayumu appears in his cheerleader outfit, and although Kazuma first gets angry, he later congratulates his brother and Daigo for it. The race starts, and after various types of obstacles like eating dishes, carrying eels, and running in costumes. The race is about to end. Koyori is in the lead dressed as a bride, and behind her, Kazuma dressed as a groom. When she's about to arrive, she trips and hits her foot, so he helps her by picking her up in his arms and carrying her to the finish line. Like newlyweds, so Koyori can fulfill the promise she made to Keita. At the hospital, Keita sees on the news that Koyori won. The days go by, and Madako goes to the river where Kazuma and Yui had the kissing incident. At school, Yui, Ibuki, Daigo, and Kazuma talk about the final exams. Ibuki will be Yui's study tutor, while Daigo comes up with an idea for those exams. The idea is that everyone stays at the inn studying. Yorozu accepts, and Tsugumi, with her sisters and Madako, also arrive to help them as tutors. After that, Hina arrives, who was invited by Tsugumi, and she wants to take advantage of the study session to apologize to Kazuma. The study session begins. They spend hours studying and helping each other, and at the end they decide to take a bath, the three boys in one bathroom, and the girls all together in another. Then they play ping pong, and at night they relax walking by the river. Ayumu tells his brother that he wants to go see the fireflies, and Ruide, who was with Kazuma, hears that and remembers when she saw his brother get engaged and kiss his girlfriend in a field with fireflies and then marry her. Dinner is ready, and everyone sees that Yui is not hungry, which is rare for her. And when they finish, they continue studying until Koyori falls asleep, then they decide to rest and continue the next day. In the middle of the night, while everyone is sleeping, Yui can't sleep due to hunger and runs into Kazuma, who had gone to the bathroom. He gives her some rice balls and starts talking about the stars and the legend of the Twin Peaks. Then Madako wakes up and sees them together through the window. We see Ibuki and Yui as children, screaming at the viewpoint of the mountain in the past. We return to the present. The exams are over and the friends want to have fun. So Daigo proposed to go on a trip with everyone to Hanchao, a city near the town, and have a party there. Imuki can't go because she has activities with her club. Hina is on her way to the station while still thinking about apologizing to Kazuma because she couldn't make it in the study session. Upon arrival, she meets Tsugumi with her sisters, Daigo, Yue, Madako, and Kazuma. Hina notices that Ibuki is not there, and neither is Ayumu because he was left drawing landscapes with his friends from the art club. Upon reaching Hanchao, they are told that they must wait 2 hours to enter the karaoke. So they decide to go to the arcade to kill time. They all play many different games. Daigo and Kazuma play a game that tries to unmask women like all until they are discovered by the girls. Yui tries to get some sweets from the claw machine game, but she can't until Kazuma sees her and takes advantage of Yui going for more coins to play and gets a cell phone ornament like Hina's. It's a budappen, a pink version of Nyan Bobo, the local mascot, and it's very rare to get. After Kazuma goes to play with Tsugumi, a game about how to raise a child, and he starts imagining Tsugumi, she notices him and he tells her that he will go to the bathroom quickly. Upon reaching it, he runs into Hina, who wants to apologize, but he interrupts her by giving her the budappen, and she thanks him. At the end, they arrive at the karaoke and everyone has fun with the songs while enjoying the food. Meanwhile, Ibuki is at her archery club and she misses her shots because she can't concentrate because of her feelings. When night falls, Kazuma is already at home. Taking a bath with his brother, he tells him about the lookout, and they agree to go together. The grades have arrived, and both Daigo and Kazuma must go to summer classes because they failed several subjects. Instead, Ibuki didn't fail any of her, and her tournament is approaching, so they decide to go cheer her on. Sunday arrives, and everyone is at the tournament except Hina and Tsugumi, who are busy working. The others run into Ibuki and start joking with her, but Yu notices something weird about her friend. At the end of the tournament, Ibuki has disappeared, which they assume is because she lost. Kazuma with his brother are returning to the inn when Kazuma leaves Ayumu to run to the lookout since he knows that Ibuki will be there. He arrives and finds her sitting. He asks her what happened and Ibuki tells him that she got scared and that's why she left without warning. Kazuma understands her and yells at the lookout. Just as she did when she was a child with Yui, Ibuki sees him and starts to yell with him. Feeling better, and both staying, watching the sunset. Leaving the lookout, Ibuki tells Kazuma to keep the secret that she cried. She also tells him that he can call her by her name, Ibuki. Then, Wui runs up and scolds Ibuki for leaving them worried, and at that moment, she realizes that Kazuma was with her. The summer days have arrived. Kazuma calls Yui to invite her to the beach along with everyone else and asks her to call Ibuki too. They'd all go on the bus, and we find out that Madako reads books to the children in the library during the summer. Besides that, she likes to write stories too. And we see Hina that still wants to apologize to Kazuma. They are out at the beach and almost everyone has fun in the sea. Madako tries not to be so shy or hit Kazuma every time he touches her. Ibuki can't swim, so she stays at the beach with Ayumu making sand castles. Hina decides to teach Ayumu how to swim. Kazuma will teach Ibuki, so they both take them to the sea to start the practice. Mei wants to eat shaved ice, so she goes to the beach to get her wallet. There she asks Subui where Kazuma is, and she shows her where he's with Ibuki learning to swim. She remembers when her brother taught her to swim. She gets sad and leaves. When Noi returns, she brings with her a couple of shaved ices for her and Sugumi, but Madako is there instead, so she gives it to her, and they eat it together. Madako seizes the opportunity and asks Yua about her feelings for our protagonist. Yui gets nervous, but she replies that she likes him and he's a sweetheart, but as an older brother. Yui asks her the same thing, and when Madako is going to confess her feelings for him, Sugumi arrives with a watermelon, so Yui calls everyone to eat and forgets about it. They play to break the watermelon and Yui wins for her sense of smell. So later they go to play volleyball, but Daigo doesn't see Sugumi and Hina. Kazuma explains that Sugumi is resting with Ayumu. Under the beach umbrellas, Ayumu asks Sugumi why she works at the inn. She tells him that she loves the town and that's why she likes to treat the people who come with hospitality and make them love the town. Ayumu understands and thinks that he causes problems for his brother, but Sugumi makes him see that this is not the case and that his brother tries to make him happy. Hina is aside observing a sea urchin. When Kazuma arrives and tells her that it's time to go back, she tries to apologize, but he doesn't understand her well. In the afternoon, the sun is setting, and the best friends Yui and Ibuki are returning to their houses. Yui asks her since when did Kazuma call her by her name. Ibuki gets nervous and doesn't know what to answer, but she asks Yui the reason for that question, to which Yui sad answers her that it is just curiosity. The day begins and Yui eats her favorite ice cream at the Backpipe Cafe. When through the window she sees that Hina is watching her, and then she leaves, leaving Yu very confused. Kazuma is complaining down the street because Daigo made him walk through several adult stores and suddenly he sees Hina. But when he gets closer, she tries to leave, although she faints in his arms due to hunger. After eating a little, she explains that she ran away from home and with a pleading look asks him to stay with him at the inn. First, he refuses because he lives as a freeloader at the inn, but when Hina starts to leave, he changes his mind. He sneaks her into the inn, and as he goes downstairs for dinner, he tells her not to leave the room. When he goes up and enters his room again, Kazuma finds Hina almost wiping her sweat, and he can't stop looking at her. Embarrassed, he turns around for her to change quickly, and when night comes, they decide to sleep together on the futon to prevent either of them from sleeping on the floor. Hina tells him that she argued with her father because she wants to go to a university in Tokyo to study marketing to help sell her family's sake, but her father thinks that if she goes to a university in a big city, she will not return. He says that she will have a chance to talk to her father, to which she remembers and apologizes for the first time they met. He makes her see that if she was able to tell him that after so long, she will be able to talk to her father at some point, and she thanks him with tears in her eyes. The next morning, Yorozu wakes up Kazuma, and he realizes that Hina is hugging him, so he gets nervous. Suddenly, Yorozu enters his room and sees them. After explaining what happened, she gives Hina a place to stay, but as long as she works and Kazuma is also put to work because Sugumi is on vacation and she needs employees. As the day goes by, Hina cleans the inn, when suddenly her father arrives and starts pulling her arm to take her home. At that moment, Kazuma arrives and sees them, so he defends Hina and tells her father that she wants to go to university to help the family business grow more. Her father complains to Hina why she didn't tell him before, but Kazuma starts arguing with him and this angers Hina's father since he is prejudiced towards our protagonist for being from the big city. And when he goes to hit Kazuma, Yorozu appears and defends him and threatening Hina's father with hitting him if he tries to take her by force, so he leaves. At Hina's house, her parents talk about what happened and her father wants Hina by his side, but he also understands what his daughter wants. So Hina's father challenges Kazuma to a tug-of-war at the shrine because he thinks that Kazuma is a bad influence on his daughter. If Hina's father wins, she will go back home, but if Kazuma wins, she will do what she wants. The day of the match arrives, and we see many families in the sanctuary that went to see the tug of war. The duel is very even, but Kazuma wins because he is more motivated for Hina to fulfill her dreams. Also, he trips and falls on top of her, and that makes her father lose. Night falls, and at Hina's house, she has dinner with her mother, and she tells Hina that her dad had planned to lose from the beginning, but he is still embarrassed for losing to a young man. She goes to the room where her father is and hugs him, praising him for what he did. On that same day, Madako was returning to the sanctuary and wonders why there are so many people there. So they tell her what happened in the tug of war and who won. Madako is surprised and asks why Kazuma would accept such a duel against Hina's father. And the village elders tell her that it was a tradition to have that duel when permission to get married was needed in the past. So they assume that Kazuma proposed to Hina, which saddens Madako. Night comes and we see our protagonist dreams, again remembering that he is a child playing with a girl and promising to be her friend forever when he wakes up to a call from Daigo asking for his help. The next day we see Koyori arrives at the sanctuary. After her vacation with her sisters in Hawaii, she asks Madako's mother about her and she tells her about the tug of war and that Madako has been strange since that day. Koyori walks in to greet Madako to make her feel better. Grandpa Jen begins to explain to Koyori why Madako might feel bad about the tug of war. At the inn, there are Ayumu, Ibuki, Kasane, Yui, Kazuma, and Daigo, and the latter talks about having a let's get all our pile-up summer homework done together, which consists of gathering all homework and doing it together. Suddenly, Koyori appears running and calling our protagonist's name, and when she reaches him, she asks him if it's true that he will marry Hina, to which everyone who is there along with Kazuma is surprised. After clarifying the issue, Koyori says that she will go tell Madako since she feels sad because she thinks that Hina and Kazuma will get married. So everyone finds out that Madako is in love with Kazuma. Koyori also realizes that and runs off to tell Madako, while Kazuma chases her. Days later, Daigo and Kasane have called Ibuki and Yui to ask them to help them to be cupids between Madako and Kazuma, but Ibuki refuses and leaves, making Yui run after her. When she catches up with her, Ibuki asks if she's okay with that, and Yui replies that Kazuma is like her old brother. So she agrees, and with this, Ibuki also agrees. Kasane along with Koyori are at Madako's house, and they convince her to have a date with Kazuma. They already planned everything for a date at the amusement park, and on top of that, they give her a dating guidebook written by them. The day comes, and the two of them are on the train to go to the amusement park. Just Madako and Kazuma, because conveniently everyone else canceled because they had last-minute things to do. But in another wagon, there are Daigo, Kasane, and Koyori, disguised spying on them. They arrive at the amusement park and Madako begins to follow the instructions of the guide that the girls gave her, even though she doesn't like the games that are there, like the roller coaster or the haunted house. But when they are having lunch, she realizes Kazuma thinks about Yui a lot. The day ends and they leave the park, while Daigo, Kasane, and Koyori see them from afar and assume that the two of them have kissed. The next day, Kazuma is at the bus station and Madako arrives with small and tight clothes. Kazuma gets nervous when he sees her and asks her why she invited him to go hiking alone, and when she's going to answer, the bus arrives. They start walking along the path that Ayumu told him, towards the lookout, and they arrive at the river where he tripped and kissed Yui, and when he crosses, he remembers something. When they have already crossed, a strong wind makes Madako's hat fly away, and Kazuma catches it in the air. He puts it back on her and remembers the girl who appears in his dreams, and he realizes that the girl he played with when he was a child is Madako. They start talking about it, and she confesses that she felt love at first sight in the past, but that she understands Kazuma's feelings in the present. She starts crying and asks him to say the same thing he told her when they were kids, so he says that they will always be friends. A new semester at school begins. Daigo constantly annoys Kazuma for rejecting Madako, although he clarifies that they don't have that kind of relationship, and at that moment Madako arrives to keep them company. On the way to school, Ibuki and Yui talk about the autumn festival play. Sugumi will be Megami, the woman in love in the legend, and Ogami will be Kazuma, the man in love and partner of this woman in the same legend. Ibuki tells Yui that the role of Megami should be hers so that she can propose to Kazuma. Yui denies, saying that he is like her brother, but Ibuki warns her that if she doesn't do something, some other girl will steal it from her, including herself, though she later pretends it's a joke. At night, they are both thinking about what happened in the morning. Ibuki is sad because she made her friend believe that what she felt was a joke, while Yui gets excited imagining what would happen if Kazuma accepts her confession. Her thoughts are interrupted when she receives a call from Ayumu asking her to be his model. The next day, our protagonist wakes up late and is once again scolded by Yorozu, who sends him to eat and go for a walk. As soon as he leaves the inn, Yorozu tells Ayumu so that he can work quietly on his painting. Kazuma goes to town and decides to go to the shopping district, and suddenly he finds Ibuki on the bridge, and since they both have free time, they decide to go to Honshu together. Ui arrives at the inn, and since she misunderstood being a model, she began to undress, but Ayumu stops her by telling her that it's not that kind of painting. Already in Honshu, Ibuki and Kazuma have fun playing games, eating, looking at clothes, and doing karaoke. Then in the cafeteria, they offer them to take a photo as a couple with a drink for both, because today is couples day. At the inn where Ayumu is drawing Muai, he tells her to take a break. While they eat, he tells her that he will give the painting to his brother because he will be happy to have a painting of the girl he likes and with whom he dates. Yu explains that they haven't dated yet and that she loves him like a brother. Suddenly, Sugumi appears to tell her that it's not like that the love she feels is not for brothers, and leaves, leaving Mui thinking about it. The sun sets and the painting is finished. But before saying goodbye, Ayumu asks her not to tell Kazuma anything. She agrees and asks him if she went out with his brother, would he be okay? Because his brother wouldn't be with him all the time. But Ayumu says that although he would feel lonely, if his brother is happy, he would be happy too. On her way home, Yu passes the path where she saw her brother kissing his fiancée. She remembers that moment and leaves thinking about it all. Kazuma is sitting with Ibuki talking about the fun of the day, and she begins to joke about the drink they were given at the karaoke, and if he wanted to drink it with her, and wondering if they really look like a couple. So she asked our protagonist if he would like to go out with her on a real date, but Kazuma doesn't take the hint and he thinks it's a joke, which makes her sad. So she says that it is a joke, although it is not. On the way to the inn, Kazuma realizes that what Ibuki said was not a joke and runs back to see her, and finding her sitting in the same place, he apologizes to her and tells her that if she meant it, forgive him. She caught him by surprise and he didn't know what to say. She sees him and tells him that it was a true joke and that there was no need for him to run back to apologize, and starts crying just as it starts to rain. Later, Ibuki arrives home alone, totally wet from the rain, and tells her mother that she has been rejected. At Yui's house, she is taking a bath, thinking that she never made her brother happy by congratulating him, so she decides to call him. He answers by telling her that he was just going to call her, and she interrupts him to say congratulations, which leaves his brother surprised because at that moment he and his wife are going to have a baby, and Muai is happy for both and because she was able to congratulate her brother and make him happy for it. The next morning, Ibuki gets up and leaves her house early to go to the lookout so she can yell at it like always, but this time she yells that Kazuma is a jackass and a total idiot. After that, she feels better and goes to school. On the way, she meets Yui, who tells her that she will be an aunt. Kazuma, along with Ayumu and Yorozu, are having breakfast before school. She tells him that he will be Ogami at the festival for being the first man to reach the finish line in the Haikonen race, even though he won second place. He thinks that it is a very important role for someone who is from the big city, but Yorozu explains that the villagers wait for people like him to play the role of Ogami and create a new generation of descendants, which makes him choke up and tell her not to talk about it. Already on the way to school, Kazuma walks with Daigo, and he tells him about Ogami's confessions to Megami, and that Kazuma can take advantage of confessing his love for Sugui, but he says that he doesn't feel love for Sugui. At that moment, Ibuki and Mui arrive, and she is shy without being able to look at Kazuma, and he is the same without being able to look at Yui. At the end of classes, Daigo begins to complain about his mother and invites his friends to backpipe to have fun for a while. But Ibuki refuses because she has an activity with her club. Kazuma also refuses because he has a meeting at the shrine, and Yui also has that meeting. Then Daigo's mother enters, who had hurt him, takes him out of the classroom, pulling him by the tie and telling him that he is in trouble. On the way to the sanctuary, Yui and Kazuma are going together. He tells her that it was a surprise to find out that he would be Ogami. She understands that, and when she wants to say something, he interrupts her wanting to speak at the same time, but he shuts up and tells her to speak first, but she doesn't say anything, and they continue walking in silence until Hina shows up and scares them off. She notices that something is wrong with them and tells them to hurry to the sanctuary before it gets late. They arrive at the sanctuary, and our protagonist dresses as Ogami, and Kisane takes the opportunity to take photos of him. Sugumi then appears dressed as Megami along with Hina and Muai, who are dressed as her maids. But Kazuma only looks at Yui and Mui at him, and they both look away sheepishly when they collide. After the costume rehearsal, they are served some tea, but Yui is in the bathroom and Suguma also goes to the bathroom. While having tea, Kisane also wants to take pictures of Madako wearing her outfit and asks her to allow her to photograph her after eating. Meanwhile, Sugumi is waiting for Yui at the bathroom exit. When she comes out, Sugumi asks her to talk. Once seated, she asks if she fought with Kazuma. Yui explains that nothing happened, but now she doesn't see him as her brother and she doesn't know how to act in front of him. Also, she gets nervous when they look at each other, and when she's alone, she thinks of him. Sugumi tells her that what Yu feels is love, and she gets nervous. Inside the shrine, only Hina and Kazuma are there, and she demands that he tell Yui what he feels. He denies this, but she points out that he helped her understand that she should say the things she wants, and he should do the same, and that way he can be happy. Already at night, Yui is in her bed remembering what Sugumi told her and the kiss that Kazuma gave her a long time ago. But she's hesitating because she doesn't even know what love is. She doesn't get a good night's sleep, and the next day she is very sleepy. After school, we see that those who will participate in the play are gathered in the sanctuary to rehearse. Madako's mother explains the roles of each one and what they will do, and when it is Kazuma's turn, she tells him that he will read a scroll confessing his love to Megami. He must read with his soul put into it, so that confession will be real, which gives Tsugumi an idea. Later that night, Sugune calls Madako while she is practicing her role and tells her that she wants to pretend to be sick. The day of the festival arrives, and when it is time to change, Tsugumi pretends to have a stomach ache and asks Yui to replace her. Although she initially refuses, she agrees, seeing that it is an emergency and Kasame will replace her in her role. The festival begins with Madako as an angel and Kazuma kneeling in front of the shrine stairs. She gives him the scroll with the confession of love written by herself, and Kazuma is transferred on a carriage to the bridge where he sees Megami's carriage arrive, but with Yui in the role. This surprises him and he stands still until Ayumu yells at him to focus. So he opens the scroll and sees that the phrase "I love you, Yui" is written. So he remembers what they told him in their rehearsal, and what Hina told him. He yells at her with all his soul that he loves her, showing his feelings. Yui hears this and responds, but Ibuki tells her to say it louder. So she also screams that she loves him. After that, we see how everyone is enjoying the festival, drinking and having fun, and Kasane finds out that Tsugumi's stomach ache was a lie. Outside, we see Ibuki with Madako sitting and talking about being rejected, but they see Yui with Kazuma and are happy for them. Then we see the couple looking at the stars. Yu comments that they are beautiful, and Kazuma tells her that she is beautiful and kisses her.